I'm going to take it a step further, actually. We talk about I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I worry, and we use a lot of these terms interchangeably, but they're actually different, and there are different coping strategies.
Do you ever wonder if resilience is genetic, like skinny thighs or a head full of gorgeous hair? I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett. Welcome back to the Work Positive Podcast. I do have skinny thighs. Obviously, I don't have a head full of gorgeous hair if you're watching us on YouTube. But I do know, and you know, that resilience is an absolute necessity to create a work culture that grows people and profits today. So, if resilience isn't genetic and it can be learned, how do you do that? My guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast is a best-selling author, entrepreneur herself, and an expert in building resilient teams, leaders, and organizations. She's done not just one, but 2 TEDx talks. She's a trainer, a survivor, an optimist, and an inspirer. She spent the last 20 years working with some of the largest organizations around the globe. So lean in, Work Positive Nation, listen up, and let's learn how to grow people and profits through resilience on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Here she is, Work Positive Nation, the Ann Grady. Ann, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So in the intro, I kind of borrowed your opening line to your TEDx talk for St. Louis, where you asked that question about are skinny thighs genetic. I added, gorgeous head of hair. Is that genetic?
Absolutely.
Man, so many people think, oh, I come from a long line of resilient people. Our family came over on the Mayflower and did. But resilience can be learned, right?
Absolutely. We all have a buffer, right? A resilience buffer. So we're able to absorb things that life throws at us. But you can build that buffer by either reducing some of the stressors, which we don't always have control over, or increasing your capacity to absorb them. And really, it's just nothing more than a set of skills and habits. And life gives us plenty of chances to practice building it.
Like every moment of every day, right?
Yeah.
I love the way you're differentiating between stressors and stress. And I understand what you're talking about, but help us in Work Positive Nation understand the distinction between stressors and stress.
So I'm going to take it a step further, actually. We talk about I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I worry. And we use a lot of these terms interchangeably, but they're actually different, and there are different coping strategies. So stress is, like you mentioned, typically tied to a clear stressor. It's like a bill or a deadline or the present your dog left in your living room. And once that stressor is removed, typically then that dissipates. However, we have been in a chronic state of stress. I think before the pandemic, but I think the pandemic certainly exacerbated it.
It did.
So stress is the physical component. It's your body's kind of response to a threat or a perceived threat, because your brain can't tell the difference between a tiger chasing you or a snarky email. Worry is all in your head, literally. Worry is the cognitive component of anxiety. It's what fuels anxiety. It's those repetitive negative thoughts. And you can't control the thought, but you can control whether or not you continue to ruminate on it. You can't control the worry, but you can control the worrying. And then anxiety is more of a broad overall state where you have nervousness or fear about the future, even if everything's objectively okay. It's the most common mental health condition. 1 out of every 3 people will have an anxiety disorder within their lifetime. It's your body's alarm system. It's like a dog barking when somebody comes by. But if you aren't able to resolve that and get to a state of calm where you can recenter and recalibrate, then it has a really detrimental effect on your brain, on your body, on your relationships, everything in between.
And after a while, your body begins to manifest it. So chronic illness becomes a part of your life experience. And all
well, and what a lot of people don't realize is stress is actually good for you. Like you wouldn't be alive if you didn't have some stress. And in short bursts, it improves every measure of performance, mood, memory, motivation, cognitive function. It even supports higher levels of immune function. So the stress itself is not generally bad for us. It's the story we tell ourselves about the stress that has the effect. Our beliefs literally change our neuro and biochemistry. So if I say to myself, I'm so stressed, I'm so overwhelmed, that's what's fueling the feeling, not the actual things I'm stressed about.
And that all adds up to anxiety. And you said one out
Yes.
of three?
Yes. So 1 out of 5
Mm.
adults and children will have a mental health condition.
Mm.
1 out of every 3 will have anxiety. 1 out of every 2 will be on an anti-anxiety or antidepressant medication within their lifetime. It's about as common as owning a dog.
Wow, I am flabbergasted. I didn't know those numbers were that high. And we saw about a 30% increase in anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications, prescriptions during the pandemic, didn't we?
Well, sure. What's interesting about your brain and your body is that they adapt to the place you spend the most time. So the more time your brain stays in a state of threat, or the more time your body is in a state of anxiety, the easier it is for that to become your default. And
Mm.
so if you're turning on the news every day and it's like breaking story and you're seeing horrible things and you're hearing horrible things and you're isolated from the people that help you build resilience, and those connections are so mission critical. Yeah, I mean, more people die of loneliness every year than smoking, high blood pressure, and obesity. And we saw that just
Mm.
skyrocket during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
The level of loneliness and anxiety and depression was just unmanageable for some. And I work with a lot of teams and organizations like Google and Lockheed Martin and Dell and Microsoft and Department of Defense. And what you see is, regardless of the industry, um, when you don't have the ability to resolve the stressor and you don't have the opportunity to recover, you end
Mm.
up in a state of burnout. And that's more than just too much work. It's your emotional needs not being met. And so you're physically and emotionally drained, and no amount of rest seems to help you recover. You
Yeah.
end up more cynical and irritable because the part of your brain responsible for regulating all those emotions doesn't work as well. So
Mm-mm.
a lot of businesses are finding themselves in a place where they really have to redefine the culture that they want to support the needs of the employees they have and the ones they're trying to attract.
Mm. So how do we do that? How do we begin to create an environment where we A, recognize it, become aware that this is
Yes,
the reality in which our people are working, and then
for
B,
sure.
put together some systems and processes where we have open, transparent conversations about this and get some help?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So how do we begin that process? Let's say I'm in a company and where we really don't talk about those things.
It's interesting. I recently did a speaking event for a couple thousand people, and at the end, somebody came up to me and said, "You mentioned mental illness, and that triggered me. I wasn't comfortable that you mentioned
Oh my
mental
goodness.
illness." And I thought,
Wow.
one, I apologized that
Yeah.
whatever he said triggered this person, but I think we have to have the conversation. There is
Mm.
such a huge stigma attached to mental illness, and it is not a moral weakness, it's biology. You wouldn't say, we don't talk about diabetes in this organization, and we certainly don't talk about cancer, and whatever we
Mhm.
talk about, we don't talk about colons. Like you wouldn't, right? Like you just don't do
Well, wait a
that. But
minute. There's that cute little commercial.
yeah,
Cologuard,
exactly. The Cologuard.
right? They
Um,
don't contribute anything to the Work Positive podcast, by the way. So
but if they did, they would ship it in a box.
money in a box, cash.
Yeah, I mean, culture is really just a set of beliefs and behaviors and kind of unwritten rules that guide how people work together, how they operate. And unfortunately, if you're not deliberate about creating one, you end up with one that you may not want,
Yeah.
right? It's just a
Yeah.
byproduct of the busyness. And so it's a lot for today's leaders to manage, because no longer is a leader just a manager, right? Now they're a therapist and a coach and a mentor and performance manager and task manager and operational manager. And it's just put a strain on so many leaders that we're seeing lots of people not want to go into leadership positions because it has
Mhm.
become so overwhelming.
Yeah, let me just come in and do my job and go back home.
Right,
So
right.
if mental illness triggered, was there a preferred phrase to use, or was it just the whole notion?
I think some people, I hear a lot of people say they're triggered now. And I think it's important to recognize that different people have different emotional reactions to things. But
Oh, yeah.
part of the challenge with mental health is that it's not just the absence of mental illness,
Mm.
right? So it's more than just not having anxiety or not having depression. your mental health is health. Your brain and body are connected. And so if a workplace would hire someone to come talk about nutrition or finances or anything else, it just means that it needs to be incorporated into a conversation about well-being. And you don't have to directly talk about mental illness if that makes you uncomfortable, but a fifth of your workforce is struggling, right? So it's like, okay, let's not hide behind it. Let's open it up and talk about it. And I see that the companies that are performing optimally have some type of either employee benefit, support, resource group, something that focuses on health and well-being, whether that's holistic or whether that's just mental and emotional. But it's an important conversation to have, and it really is a key, as the younger generation comes into the workforce. We used to, I joke that, my dad would stayed at a company for 50 years. Like, he started there, he retired there, right? It's just what you did.
Perfect.
And now my daughter just graduated from college, and she's like, I want to look for a role that allows me to be part of the community, where there's social responsibility, where I feel mentored, where I'm growing, where I feel psychologically safe. And so the expectations are just different now. It's no longer like, well, you should be motivated, you get a paycheck.
That's right. What do we pay you for anyway? Yeah.
Right. But now it's a little bit deeper. And so the way we approach talent has to change, or else we're going to end up stuck with a culture that doesn't support what we want.
Well, and what's really fun is so many companies have your dad, you, and your daughter all working together, and then probably a fourth generation in there, all coming with different sets of expectations. The older ones, okay, closer to my age, they're the ones who are saying, hey, we don't need to talk about that. They wouldn't know to say triggered. They'd just go and walk away, right? To your daughter's generation that wants the psychological safety and all those things. So how do we begin to craft a culture to attract top talent? Because here in Work Positive Nation, we prefer attract top talent as opposed to recruiting, because recruiting is like selling the sizzle with no steak, right? It leads to some of your daughter's cohorts. It is, right? But how do we craft that and then represent it in such a way that it's attracting top talent?
Well, culture isn't a project, it's a practice. So it's not a one and done. It's not like we're going to sit around as a team with HR and all of our department heads, and we're going to figure out what our culture statement is going to be and what our values are going to be, and we're going to put them on a plaque on the wall. Like that's great, but if you're not living them every day, it's really a postcard. It's not substantive. And so well, my advice to leaders is create a place that people want to spend a third of their life in, right? Because that's how much you spend at work. You spend a third of your life at work. And so if you've got a place where people look forward to going and can be themselves, then they tend to enjoy that time more. And just as an aside, the happier they are, the better they perform and the more productive they are. So
the longer they stay.
And the longer they stay. And right now we're having such a gap in expertise because, to your point, you've got generations that have so much subject matter expertise and they're retiring. And so you've got this huge skill gap of how do we transfer this knowledge to a younger workforce now, and keep that up. And so part of that is understanding generational differences and what different people need. It's using people's strengths. But the best way to attract great people is for the people you have to be happy and talk about it to their friends, right? It's like that book, Raving Fans. You want to create apostles of your culture because people feel so valued being part of it. And that's really where the key comes in. And that starts with leadership. So, a lot of times you see people get promoted because they have subject matter expertise or tenure, but that doesn't make them a great leader of other people. They might be a great subject matter expert, but not necessarily a people leader. So really, the companies that are investing in leadership and team development are the ones that are seeing a greater ROI, because for every dollar invested, you're seeing a return of $4 to $6. Wow. Unfortunately, it's the first thing that gets cut when budgets constrict. And so it's like, oh, well, we're not making so much money, so let's not give our employees the ability to stay motivated and
Yeah,
engaged.
and that
And so
giant
it's
sucking sound is productivity, right?
yeah, and it's counterintuitive. And the more stressed and overwhelmed people become, the less productive they become. And then it just creates this vicious cycle to where I have some clients who are like, well, let's let attrition just take place and we'll let them get rid of themselves. And I'm like, yeah, but who are you left with? You're left with the
Um,
people you
may not
weren't
be the
crazy
ones you
about in the
wanted.
right, right, right. Yeah. So there's a
Um,
lot of ways, Amy Edmondson out of Harvard has done pioneering work around psychological safety. And I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what that really means. It's not like kindness and it's not always being polite. It's making it safe to be you.
hmm.
And we've got this toxically positive or, you know, I think sometimes, it's like parents who are like, don't come out of your room till you're happy. I think I think we have some leaders who are like, come on, turn that frown upside down. Everything's going to be okay. Look at the silver lining.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. You have to make it safe for people to be okay, not being okay,
Mm.
in order to drive real conversations and then not punish them for expressing those feelings and conversations and really priding them. But it's also about setting up workplace systems and processes to manage workload because there's only so much a person can do. And if they have unrealistic goals and unrealistic numbers that they have to reach, or if it's not possible to get it all done, then you feel defeated before you ever start, and there's very little motivation to want to do it.
Yeah.
So
Why get started if I'm defeated before I even begin?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And the
Right.
other thing about attracting top talent is to get crystal clear on your purpose. Like,
Mm.
why are you doing what you are doing? How is it helping people? How is it advancing technology? How is it making an impact in the world? People inherently want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Mhm.
And if you are really clear on your purpose and you're compelling people with this vision of what you can achieve,
Mm.
they want to be a part of it.
Mm. Oh yeah, because we want to belong to something that's
Yeah.
greater good and bigger than me, and then there's
Yeah.
that sense of belonging that comes from that,
Yeah.
as well as becoming. There's a career path there for me to advance my skill sets and to move forward.
Yes.
So, every superhero has an origin story. What's
Hmm.
your origin story around resilience?
Well, I don't know if I'm a hero or a super. Although I always have wanted to be Wonder Woman. I used to dress up and wear like tinfoil on my wrists and dodge
Oh
bullets.
yeah. Choo, choo,
I'd
choo.
rope my dog with the lasso of truth. No. Um,
I'm
yeah,
still looking for that lasso of truth.
yeah, exactly.
You
Well,
can't stand the truth.
yeah, that's right. My journey is like so many others. I've had lots of bumps, bruises along the way. I mean, you could start as early as a traumatic childhood, but I'll start with my son Evan, who has some severe learning disabilities and developmental delays, severe mental illness, autism, a bunch of other diagnoses. But uh, we're talking multiple pediatric psych hospitalizations. We're talking residential treatment. We're talking um, just a lot of trauma. And so when Evan was hospitalized for the second time, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my salivary gland. So when you don't have ways to unload stress, your body shuts down your immune function. So basically, my tumor led to facial paralysis, which led to a scratched cornea. And
Oh,
then I had eye surgery to put a gold weight into my eyelid and stitch up my bottom eyelid. But the day before it, I fell down a flight of stairs and broke my foot in 4 places before going through radiation, double fusion back surgery, triple fusion neck surgery on the horizon. It's just been a series of health challenges, family stuff. And what really got me is that people kept telling me I was strong and resilient, and I didn't feel that way. I was overwhelmed, I was exhausted, I was emotional. So I started, I'm a master's in organizational development. I was like, okay, well, how do you translate this to skills that people can learn? So I started digging into the research, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that there were some things I was doing that were actually helping me be more resilient, but there were some things I was doing that were hurting me as well. And it was really helpful to learn what those things were so I could do less of those and more of the things that were helping me. And I got really excited about sharing it with organizations and teams because if you have healthy employees and you have people who are um, focused on not just performance, but also well being, then
Mm.
you end up with this ability to perform at a really high level and keep people engaged while you're doing it.
Dr. Joey here with a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. Just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, your strengths, and get personalized next steps. Receive your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Wow. Ann Grady is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Keep listening. Stay with us. There's more to come. And at the end of this podcast, Ann's got a free gift to give to your Work Positive Nation. So we're going to enjoy that. So you had lots of opportunities to develop resilience. I'm greatly intrigued because I hear this so many times, particularly in origin stories. Someone else recognized a quality in me that I didn't see in myself.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
was that transforming moment for you, Anne, when you said to yourself, I mean, you talked about you got the master's in organizational development. Okay, we get that. But what was that moment for your own personal transformation where you said, maybe I am resilient?
I think it was when I was sitting on the couch after my tumor surgery, after just having discharged my son from his second pediatric psych hospitalization at the age of 10. And I'm sitting on the couch with my facial paralysis, and I'm angry and I'm scared and I'm overwhelmed.
Mm,
And it occurred to me that, if I could survive the worst thing that's ever happened to me and still be standing, then other people could too. We just have to learn how. So I think it's just knowing, like, if you have survived all the hard stuff you've been through, you are resilient. And it took somebody else saying that out loud for me to go, I never thought of myself as strong, which is why my TED Talk is called Strong Enough. Like, you just realize you're just strong. You just have to be strong enough. And you never know how strong you are until it's the only choice you have. I've heard lots of people say, I could not imagine having to live with a child I was afraid of physically. I don't think I could do that. And I was a single mom for a long time. His dad left when he was 18 months old because he was so challenging. And so
wow.
I didn't think I could do it either. And had I not have done it, I still wouldn't have believed I could do it. But you do things that you don't know you're capable of doing because we're
Yes,
built to survive.
we are. And you don't know what you can do until you have to do it. I mean, your husband leaves, the kid's 18 months old. You look around, there's no one there to come in to save you. So
Right.
you look deep inside yourself. Something in you not only wanted to be Superwoman, you were Superwoman.
I don't know about that. I had lots of missteps and mishaps and mistakes along the way.
Oh, well, welcome to the
But
human race, Ann Grady. We're glad to have you here. But it's in
Well,
spite
and
of.
it's interesting, Joey, because I speak to groups all over the world on this, and I still have bad days. And yesterday I was traveling back from New York City from a speaking engagement, and I missed two connections because of delays. And then one thing happened after another, and it was the travel
Oh,
day, from you know what, and I was
yeah,
like
yeah.
overwhelmed, and I just kind of like sat there, and I had a little pity party for myself. And it's one thing to speak and teach it. It's another thing to live it. And so the thing for
Yes.
me is it's not a perfect, it's a practice. And every day you're going to maybe take a step forward or a step back and you just recalibrate and keep going. But there are things that you can do both mentally and physically to prepare yourself for
Mm,
those tough things. And so
mhm.
that's what I got really excited about sharing.
Yeah, so let's dig into those a little bit because leaders must take care of themselves in order to create a positive work culture that is resilient and meets people where they are and with
Yeah.
their own mental challenges. So give us a tip or two around, what can I do for myself?
So for leaders, it's real important to know that you can't promote what you don't practice.
Mm.
You have to do these things for you first. So it could be something as simple as paying attention to the narrative that you have about what's going on. So if you're going through rapid change and uncertainty at work, and you're thinking to yourself, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, they're never going to be able to do this. What ends up happening is we don't realize that story shapes the team and the way they approach it. And most of us make this mistake of trying to go from this sucks to this is awesome. What an exciting
0 to 60 in 2.
right. And your brain doesn't do that. Like if you have really poor self-esteem, then I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, affirmations aren't the place you start. And I think sometimes what we don't realize is it's okay to go from negative to neutral. It's
Mm.
okay to go from this sucks to we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
This is hard. We'll take it one step at a time.
That's a huge leap sometimes to go from that negative just to get to neutral,
To
right?
neutral, right?
Wow,
And
heavy
so, and I
lifting.
think the mistake leaders make is they try to pretend like they have it all together because they don't want people to, they don't want to lose credibility.
Yeah.
But psychological safety is created from vulnerability.
Yes.
And you have to make it okay to not be okay. And that starts with you. And that's part of it is emotional intelligence and being self-aware enough to understand. Part of it is empathy and learning how
Mm.
to connect with other people and give the benefit of the doubt because
Mm.
we're all doing the best we can.
Mm.
Um, and so I think the best gift leaders can give their teams is being honest. And if you can't share the information, tell them you can't share it, but that you will when you can.
Yeah.
Without the information, we fill in the blanks, and we usually
Oh,
fill them in wrong. So
it's always worse.
investing in your leadership development and your leadership is the first step, I would say. Really give them the tools to be able to navigate not just the workload, but the people as well.
Josh Friedman's been on this podcast a couple of times,
Yeah,
and
he's great.
oh, isn't he though? And boy, that whole notion really transformed my mindset of you have 6 seconds in that interaction that with that team member, 6 seconds, and whatever emotion, the feeling becomes
Mhm.
cognitive. Whatever that emotion is at that point, that's going to stick. And so
Yep.
you've got to be prepared and know the landscape. If you're going from negative to neutral, then okay, let's just be authentic about it. And I know that we hear that word a lot, but just let's just say, I don't know. Now, and that's really hard for my generation to say, I don't know, because that's like, here's the chink in my armor, please shoot here. Right?
Yeah, I
But
understand. Yeah.
yeah, but with 3 or 4 generations in companies today, and the rapid pace of change, I mean, AI is changing, it's doubling every 6 months. Okay, we don't know, but let's work together to figure it out. Let's do that. So it just seems like it's that level of vulnerability and transparency that really helps organizations move towards attracting top talent and then keeping them on the team where they're psychologically safe and really at peak performance. So what
Yep.
are some of the challenges that you observe out there in the workspace today where it's just like, okay, I know what I want to do it, but man, that's a tall mountain to climb.
Well, I think part of it is just rapid change. The greatest threat of all to the human brain is not taxes or death, it's uncertainty.
Yes.
So the human brain would rather know, hey, this is going to be another 5 years of crazy and then it'll be okay than not knowing at all. And so I think one of the biggest challenges to creating the culture you want is that with this level of rapid change, you also have to create a sense of safety. And so,
Mm.
for example, one of my clients, instead of exit interviews, they have stay interviews. So they'll ask their employees, like, what are some of the reasons you stay here, and what would be some of the reasons you would leave here?
Mm.
Um, and really working through some of those things. The challenges are people are tired, they're struggling financially, inflation. And now you've got like, I'm 50 and now I'm taking care of kids and parents. So you've
Oh,
got
yeah.
this
Mm.
whole social dynamic that we've not had and for very long, and
Yeah.
everybody's trying to figure it out with limited resources. You're told to do more with less. But one of
How's
the
that working
simplest
out for you? Right.
But one of the simplest things is like, I think it's something staggering. Like 80% of Americans don't use all their vacation time. Like, that's
Yeah.
just an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Use your vacation time. And then, I heard someone say self-care is not a bubble bath, it's a boundary.
Mm.
And if you want to protect your health, you have to set them. So, my out of office email, now I'm fortunate I have someone on my team who can help out if I'm gone,
Sure.
but my out of office email says in case of emergency, dial 911. Like,
It's like the doctor's office, right?
right. Like,
This is
unless
a
this
medical
is
emergency.
life shattering, I need time to disconnect. And even though I run a business, even though I manage a team, even though I'm responsible for livelihoods of other people,
Mm.
you still have to take time to disconnect. And it doesn't mean go on vacation and check your email. It doesn't mean go on vacation and think about work. It means even if you're not going anywhere, turning your computer off, trying to stay away from devices as much as you possibly can, and give your brain and body time to actively rest and recover.
Mm.
Simple tweak.
It is simple, but it's not easy. Because
No, it's not easy. But if you're a leader who is sending out emails at midnight and you're going, no, I don't expect them to respond. I'm just because I'm awake. Well, you're
yeah,
creating more of what you don't
yeah,
want, right? So
sure.
I think part of the challenge is lack of clearly defined values,
Mhm.
expectations, and accountability. The more clear you are on the behaviors that are acceptable and those that aren't, the more freedom people have to be themselves because they're not always wondering, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? You create these shared values and expectations together, not for your team, but with your team.
With your team in a collaborative spirit.
Right.
I can't hear what you're saying because of what you're doing. It's the behavior, and our behavior as leaders just weighs more. Yes, our words weigh more too, but our
Yeah.
behavior just weighs more. This is, the thing for me that in my own journey right now, and the thing that I'm finding myself doing is digging back into thought leaders from the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s, not the 2020s. I just realized what I said. Like Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale and those kinds of guys. Man, Napoleon Hill, in his 17 Laws and then also in Think and Grow Rich, he's just constantly saying to do exactly what you just said. And this was 100 years ago. Pull
Exactly.
back,
Yeah.
take that time, just sit quietly, even if it's for only 10 or 15 minutes. And then the whole auto suggestion thing, where you're repeating to yourself, you're tapping into your amygdala, right? That can't tell the difference between reality and fear. And so
Yeah.
you're just programming your brain to be in that positive space. But yet we just keep thinking we can be frenetic and it's going to be okay. That's just not working. And kudos to Gen Z for saying, hey, baby boomers, we've seen you with the highest divorce rate and the highest addiction rate of any previous generation. We're not going there. We're going to do something different. And so
We're
they'll
going to stay
expect
living at home with you until we figure that out.
it. Well, you're the one with a daughter who just finished college. I'm beyond that right now. So that's a reality check for you. But anyway, hope that works out good. I'll be glad to tell you how we did it. But it's just take 10 minutes in the morning and let your brain rest and tap into the innovation and creativity that's within you and just give your mind some white space to just have a little
Well,
fun,
I
relax.
think part of the challenge is we've taught our children that it's not good to be bored. When I was a kid, it's like, I'm bored. Okay, go play. Like,
Yeah,
imagine, make things up. I was an only child, so it was like, go outside and
yeah,
play.
yeah.
And you had to get creative. You had to use your imagination, and you weren't afraid of silence. And I see an entire generation that is literally so uncomfortable with boredom
Mm,
that you pick up a device to give you some level of stimulation. In the absence of it, we feel bored. Well, not there are legitimate ADHD and ADD
sure,
challenges with
sure,
lots of
sure.
people, but I think we've also kind of created induced ADD because we
Mm,
are so fragmented, we are so easily distracted. We're training our brain to only be able to focus for short periods of time, and you can change your brain. That's the thing I
Yes.
found so liberating is that you don't have to live with the brain you were given. You
Mm,
can change your brain.
plasticity. Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. And I'm living proof of it. I was diagnosed with clinical depression when I was 19, right? The irony of a depressed motivational speaker is not.
I don't know. I've stood on a platform in front of some of those crowds too.
But I mean, I have to practice this stuff as my own survival mechanism. So I know that it works because I don't have one of those naturally gifted brains who wakes up and goes, the sun is shining. Let me go high five some sunbeams and look at unicorns and rainbow. Like I have to work really hard at it. So I know it works. I know it can
Yeah,
be done.
it can be done, and it is done. Well, you remind me of a recent experience I had with our 5-year-old granddaughter. She was holding the air hose for me to put air in Gigi's tires, my wife's tires, right on the Tahoe. And so she's standing there holding it, and she says, "I'm bored." And so this is a child whose imagination is off the charts, who rather play than watch TV,
Oh,
and
that's so
just
good.
you can hear her telling herself stories and actually using different voices for the
Oh, I
little
love that.
dolls and also oh we do too. So I said, well, what we're doing is we're putting air in Gigi's tires so it's safe for her to drive you around where you're going. But what does this air hose look like to you? And so that became the jumping off point, right? While Pops
Right.
was checking tire pressure and all like that. For we were holding a deadly snake, that was going to try to eat Gigi's tire, and I mean, it was just absolutely marvelous and wonderful. So, to your point, let's cultivate boredom as a mindfulness
Well,
technique,
and
right?
I don't know if you have to shoot for boredom, but you have to create some space. Like for most of us, when we
Oh,
put our head in the pillow, on the pillow at night, that's when your brain is like, okay, it's go time. And you start worrying about everything. And that's because you didn't give your brain time to process during the day. So
process.
I created a bathroom habit.
Oh,
Um, I call it a mirror moment. And so it's the one room you know you're going to go in multiple times during the day.
yeah,
Everybody uses it. Nobody's
right.
immune.
And
You know
just
you're going to go in there.
true confession, the older you get, the more you go.
Right, right, right. Whenever I wash my hands, I am looking in the mirror going, okay, how do I want to show up? How am I feeling? Like, let me take 3 really deep breaths and just reset my nervous system.
Mm,
Because when you run from one meeting to the next and you're on calls and you're back to back, and then you race to go pick up your kids at school, and then you're making lunches, and then you're doing this, and then you're doing
you forgot
like
to
the
pick up the
only
laundry, right?
Right. And the only time your brain has to process that is when you are laying down to sleep.
Mm,
Instead, give yourself time during the day. Like I have a worry window. I give myself 10 to 15 minutes a day
mm,
because I'm a natural worrier. And I give myself permission to just worry. I write everything down. Here are all the things I'm worried about.
mm,
If I have a worry in the day, I'll just write it on a sticky note and I'll visit
yeah,
it during my worry window tomorrow. But you got to give
yeah.
your brain some downtime with no screens, not listening to anything. Just sit quietly for 3 minutes. And if it seems like forever, then you need to sit quietly longer.
Just set a timer on your phone or something. If you constantly looking to say, has it been 3 minutes? It's been 3 minutes? No, no, just set the timer.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways I can tell how I'm doing is how
Mhm.
quickly do I fall asleep? And my wife's a great barometer on that for me. She said, I said, how'd I do last night?
Yeah.
Going to sleep. And
Yeah. Let's
she'll
hope.
say, yeah, she'll say 30 seconds at the most. Say,
Yeah.
oh, you were snoring in about 20 seconds last night.
Well, and a lot of people fall asleep, but then they wake up in the middle of the night and make the mistake of checking their phone. And you're scrolling through social and email. And not only are you triggering cortisol and the light and
Yep,
everything
yep.
else in your brain, but you're disrupting your sleep further. So I think we just have to kind of go back to basics. Are you getting good nutrition? Are
Mm.
you sleeping? And I love people who tell me I do just fine on 4 hours of sleep. Well, imagine what you could accomplish on 6. You
For
know,
how long can you go sleeping 4 hours a night? Yeah, right. Because your
and
body's gonna burn it up, man.
one of the best things you can do for your health that I did not realize, and I truly credit this with my face recovering when they said they didn't think it would, is a gratitude practice because you don't even have to find anything to be grateful for. Just looking drops cortisol by 23%. So
Mm.
if you train your brain to start scanning your environment for what's right, you're
Yes.
more likely to find it. And so I encourage teams to just have a gratitude, 5-minute gratitude meeting, like at the beginning of your meeting, just, all right, everybody, what's something right now? What's
Mm-hmm.
one thing in your life that's right now? Right?
Hmm.
Because what that does is it gets people's brain from threat to safety
Yep.
because you're not thinking about what you're grateful for when you're running from a tiger.
Yep.
But it also lowers defensiveness, cynicism. It improves collaboration and communication and receptivity. Because when people feel appreciated, I don't know anybody that's ever gone home at the end of the day and said, you know what, if I get one more compliment or if
That's right.
one more person appreciates me,
I
I'm out.
don't believe him anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's one of my standard practices, and one of the ones we teach as a part of the Perceive Core practice in Work Positive Nation is that gratitude diary. And look, if nothing else, you didn't get run over by a concrete truck today. Okay, so
Right.
just be grateful for that. One of the
Yeah.
questions that I really love to drill it down a little further, if you can't think of anything, is what's one thing that you're grateful for today that you didn't have or weren't grateful for last week or last month or last year? And that gives some specificity so your mind can,
Yeah.
rifle through those days. And Grady, we could just go on and on and on and talk forever. I absolutely love it. But there's some books and some other materials that you have so Work Positive Nation can continue learning how to create a resilient, positive work culture. In the show notes, you'll find her TEDx talk that she referenced a moment ago, and you can catch that skinny thighs comment that I think is absolutely hilarious. And then we've got Ann Grady Group. That's Ann with an E, by the way, AnnGradyGroup.com. That's in the show notes if you're on the Peloton or walking your dog or out playing with your donkeys, which if you're
Yes.
watching this,
Which I'll be doing after this interview.
and loves donkeys and has got a few. So if we go to AnnGradyGroup.com/books, we can find all your books there. There's one that's in the show notes that'll you can click on the link, take you right to the Amazon link, Mind Over Moment. Mind Over Moment. Let's make sure we got that. Ann's URL to her LinkedIn profiles there, as well as her YouTube channel for the Ann Grady Group. But there's one particular thing I want you to share with us about because this is the gift that I promised earlier. AnnGradyGroup.com/strong. Tell me what I'm going to find there.
So you'll get a resilient self-assessment so that you can identify areas of strength and opportunity in your own resilience, a copy of a self-care sheet. It's just a way to make sure you're focused on the right things, the things that matter most. Our resume and our eulogy should not be the same document, and we have to make time for the things that really fill our cup and matter. But you'll also get every Tuesday, I send out a tip, tool, or strategy. It's a resilience reset on Tuesday morning. I don't sell anything. I don't market anything. It's just a way for you to get a reset during your week with some tools to help make things a little bit easier.
I'm loving it. That's AnnGradyGroup.com/strong, and it's in the show notes for you there. Ann Grady, Work Positive Nation always wants to know from my guests, and we've talked about a lot of tips and
Yeah.
tactics here today. But what's one thing Work Positive Nation can start doing today to create the kind of resilient, positive work culture we're talking about here?
Say thank you. Appreciate people for something specific. Not good job, but hey, I really appreciated yesterday in that meeting. You took a risk speaking up and I loved the way you did that. Or hey, thank you so much for helping me with that project last week. I was really overwhelmed and you really helped me. The more specific the praise, the better. Catch people doing things right. So people repeat behavior that gets attention, whether that's positive or negative. And you get a lot farther if you appreciate people and tell them what you appreciate. It creates safety, it creates meaning, it creates a workforce that wants to be there, that doesn't feel like they just have to be. So just say thank you for something specific.
Well, I'm going to say thank you to Ann Grady for something specific coming on the Work Positive podcast. I'm also going to give a shout out to Lisa Cummings, who introduced
Yep.
us, who is a recent guest here. Thank you, Lisa. We love you. And thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. I'm better for this conversation, and I know Work Positive Nation is too.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Be well.
I'm grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett or click the link that's below in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention that you're a podcast listener because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. That's a $19.95 value. It contains practical strategies that I've personally used with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore how to create a positive work culture in every single one of these episodes. Our LinkedIn connection, though, allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges. I personally read and respond to your messages because I genuinely care about your success in creating a positive work culture. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.